The content presented is for entertainment purposes only. Some content may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. So this is going to be a packed show today. I'm going to do my very best to be calm and to be reasonable, and just kind of share with you guys what I think about these different articles that I'm going to be sharing with you all today. So there's going to be some Witcher news, and it's already sounding like it's looking bad for the fans. This is kind of like a very similar thing that's happened with the House of Dragons. Where they are recasting different roles. So there's going to be a new recasting of Geralt. We're going from Henry Cavill to Liam Hemsworth. There's also a European court that is overturning a feminist demonstration inside a Catholic church while the congregation was worshiping. I'm only laughing because I can't believe we're talking about this. And then also to talk a little bit about a leftist article on MSNBC. And it's like, it's only inevitable that these individuals are going to find racism for racism's sake, it seems. So let's talk a little bit about the Witcher news. So in this article from the Screen Rant, one of my favorite places to find cool articles on TV shows and movies. I definitely recommend anyone who loves movies and films. It's a very interesting place to find information, and so far I haven't seen too much wokeness in it. It's actually been very tame and very just, there's some memes, and there's there's also some overreaching conclusions that are reached in certain things, but I think for the most part it's a pretty good and solid website, so I encourage everybody to check it out. So The Witcher has recast Geralt for Season 4, and Liam Hemsworth will be taken over from Henry Cavill. But the news really is not bad as you think. Full stop. Really? Based on the books for the same name, Cavill has played Geralt, also known as the White Wolf, since 2019 when The Witcher first premiered on Netflix. The Witcher currently has 2 seasons on Netflix, with a third set to release mid-2023, and will continue to follow Andrzej Sapkowski's book in Geralt's adventures as a beast hunter with supernatural abilities. Now, anybody who's been living under a rock knows about this. I mean, even me, who has not played any of the games, has been interested in the franchise, and since it has come to Netflix, I've only fallen more and more in love with it. So continuing on, The Witcher news that Liam Hemsworth will be replacing Henry Cavill as Geralt has caused backlash online from fans. Oh, I wonder why. But the recasting could work for Geralt, and definitely does not mean the end of the Witcher world. Cavill is a huge fan of the Witcher world, and has massively helped him define Geralt and provide audiences with a faithful adaptation. But this does not mean Hemsworth will not be able to develop Geralt even further and prove he was the right choice for the recast. I can't read today. Plus, The Witcher has an excellent cast with plenty of stories to follow, such as series, controversial storylines, and Yennefer's journey, which can support Hemsworth's transition into the role. So what fascinates me about this author is that it alleges that Liam Hemsworth would be a good fit in place of Henry Cavill's Geralt. The obvious is that Cavill has been playing the Witcher lead character for the last 2-3 seasons, and it would make sense that the fan base would be up in arms, so to speak, without the swap, as they are two very different people, as well as Hemsworth's work is much to be wanting. Will he live up to Cavill's Geralt? That's actually a very good question. Let's go ahead and look up some pictures of Liam Hemsworth. And I just kind of wanted to show you guys a few images of this gentleman. If you haven't seen him. I think he was in the new Independence Day 2 film, which came out a couple of years back. It was definitely, I kind of wish he was a bit better. But he's a handsome guy. He looks good in a beard. He's handsome. I mean, he has a pretty decent jawline. So I mean, as far as like look wise, give him the eyes. I don't think he would look too bad as the new Geralt. So let's look at Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill. Sure, let's go ahead and bring up Witcher because he looks freaking awesome. So I mean, if we give him the hair, we give him the eyes, and give him the scruff. Look wise, I don't know. I don't think somebody even put them side by side. I don't think it would be a too bad transition, like look wise. I'm just going to be objectively honest here. I think look wise it would be okay. Only Hemsworth does look a little bit younger. I don't know if that's going to look correctly as far as like age wise. I mean, obviously you can make up with that with makeup and stuff. I don't know if he's going to bulk up for the role either. I don't know about you, but looking by his size, I know that's kind of a controversial thing to look at size of people nowadays, but he looks like he needs to put on a few pounds to kind of fill that role. I mean, Henry Cavill is a pretty buff dude, and he kind of looks kind of stringy here as a pilot here for the Independence Day sequel. So, I mean, from the face wise, looks okay. Body type, I don't know. He's really gonna have to bulk up for the part. But put in his context, put on a wig, possibly. But he's in all the films that I've seen him in, he's been kind of a forgettable character in most of the films I've seen him in. So I don't really know if this is going to be what's best for the series franchise. I mean, even though the other characters, are okay, the person playing Yennefer, the person that's playing Ciri, they are okay. I kind of feel like Henry Cavill and that name attached to the series franchise was definitely the thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to shake the camera here. I think that was kind of one of the big draws for this series, and I love Henry Cavill. I think he made a great Superman. I still believe my favorite DCU film was Man of Steel. I'm actually really excited that we are going to get a follow-up. I'm hopefully a sequel to that one. Hopefully it's the same people involved and everything, because I really enjoyed that film. And we're just going to have to see what happens. I just don't think he's going to be able to fill those shoes, to be frankly honest. Henry Cavill embodies Geralt for a lot of fans of The Witcher, yes, of course, especially with his dedication to the lore of The Witcher and faithfulness to the books. However, Geralt as a character appeared in the Witcher books and games first, with no link to Cavill. Well, no duh. So Cavill's version of Geralt is one of many, and it is not bad that there will be another version. It is if you are recasting in the middle of starting another series. I mean, thankful it wasn't in the middle of the series, but I mean, we're just gonna have to wait and see. I just am hesitant to even think that it's going to be a good fit, just because you are going from one person to another, and now we're going to get a different version of Geralt, not the same one that we've had and known and loved for the last few seasons. Although it is a big change for audiences when the main character is recast in a show. Oh, really? It is not the first time someone has been recast in a show, such as Game of Thrones, many recasts. Yeah, but the fans have not really enjoyed the House of Dragons changes. I mean, can anybody say that they loved it? It'll be challenging for The Witcher, but not show ending, and it will not take long for audiences to get used to the change. I actually disagree. I think this might destroy the series, to be frankly honest. And that kind of sucks. I know it's probably because he got some other offers or some other deals that he had to go and take, or I felt he needed to take over this. But just like many characters who have embodied many of our beloved movie and TV leads, for many, this change is going to leave a bad taste in their mouth. I don't know if this person is alleging to the cast changes of the first season of House of Dragons, which may see as a huge oversight and difficult comeback if they decide to do season 2. Yes, it is not the first time somebody has been recasted as a main character in a TV series, but it usually ends in devastation. I don't know how far House of Dragons may go, but this may be the axe that could kill the show. Hemsworth has a lot of work to fill some big character shoes. And I believe very strongly in that. I don't believe that switching characters in the middle of the season or going from one season to the next is really good for a show. In fact, it's really broken a lot of shows. Any shows, I can even think of where a lot of the main characters started in those shows. If they were recasted or if they were written out or killed off, look at, I think another good example, in my opinion anyways, is The Walking Dead. As soon as Rick was very weirdly and strangely written off in the middle of that season, it just wasn't The Walking Dead anymore. And that's just, very unfortunate. And yeah, I understand they actually kept Rick on longer than it would have, if you go by the illustrated series. I understand and I get that. And it kind of becomes Carl's story. It just, that's the thing, is it's very different when it comes to TV shows. And I really don't think this is going to be good for the franchise. I really don't. Liam Hemsworth's filmography also shows he might work as Geralt, and the recasting may not ruin The Witcher for audiences. Hemsworth's role as Gale Hawthorne in the Hunger Games franchise is evidence he can dedicate himself to franchises. Okay. So dedication to a franchise is not what's going to help. I'm sorry, it's not. Dedication is great, but if you're a forgettable character, and honestly, Hemsworth's character, I don't even remember his character in the Hunger Games, to be, frankly honest. IMDb. Let's go to IMDb. Let's figure this out. Hemsworth. Hunger Games. Okay. Liam Hemsworth. There we go. So I honestly don't even remember his character. Oh. Is he even on Gale Hawthorne? Oh, this is when he was much younger. Oh yeah, it's starting to come back to me a little bit. But even then, his character was just okay. I I hate to say that, but I just don't. I don't know. I digress. Especially fantasized ones in the Hunger Games dystopian world is good preparation for the darker side of The Witcher. Hemsworth's role in Independence Day Resurgence and Expendables 2 provides his experience with action-adventure roles, while Independence Day Resurgence also gives him practice with fighting non-human entities. Plus, Hemsworth can ask his brother, Chris Hemsworth, aka Thor, for advice about wearing wigs on set. Hemsworth has had a range of roles that will allow him to embody Geralt's three-dimensional character and allow The Witcher to continue to explore Geralt's story, adventures, relationships, including where Ciri and will choose Geralt over Emir. So Hemsworth has a wealth of acting roles, but is he the right fit for the job? That's the big question. One could say that his ruggedness and overall base look could work, like I was saying in the beginning. The voice is very important, and hopefully they won't have to do voiceovers and have the natural gravelly grunts. Although the stories centered around Yennefer and Ciri can be good, they are background stories at best. The fans come for Geralt, and if he is no longer there, even in spirit, this could be the end for this fan favorite, and another sad tale for Netflix. And I just hesitate to say that this is a good thing. And I'm sure, this writer is just coming, he just wants this to be good, and he just wants it to continue because obviously the Witcher world is very, very interesting. It's very fun. It's very in-depth. It's very dark. It can be playful at times. It can be very serious, and it can have, can give you all the feels. I mean, it really did have everything. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Again, we're just going to have to wait and see when it comes out and see if it works or not. So our second article, there's a European court that overturned a sentence for a feminist who simulated aborting Jesus on Catholic altar while topless and urinating during a Catholic mass. This has been a very interesting topic. I mean, it is going to be pretty graphic. That's why we put the disclaimer in the beginning, because we don't know what we're going to talk about. If we're going to talk about things that are pretty heavy and very explicit, that's why we do these things. So this article reads, the European Court of Human Rights, ECHR, recently overturned the ruling of a French court that had fined and issued a jail sentence to a feminist who interrupted a Roman Catholic Church service and aborted Jesus on the altar while topless. Eloise Bouton was bare-breasted and painted in pro-choice slogans all over her body when in December 2013 she interrupted Christmas carols at Paris' famous Madeleine Church and protested the Catholic Church's teachings against abortion by simulating an abortion of Jesus. Wow, that's a lot to take in. I only laugh when you hear me laugh, I usually laugh because I am in absolute awe and disbelief that we have to talk about these things in the year 2022. Picket lines and demonstrations on the sidewalk or in front of a building at a safe distance is one thing, but demonstrating in a building is quite something else. Not to mention that the whole congregation was exposed to this woman's demonstration. Now, the article in question does not speak of any children, but I'm assuming it's a full pew of families and individuals who I'm assuming there were kids, and I'm not okay with that. Just like I've spoken on, many other times, one of my lines when it comes to, talking about additional sexuality, otherwise, talking to your child appropriate to their age about boys and girls, anything outside of that, that's something that they should learn late into their teens, if not an adult. And to be exposed to these kinds of things, especially these demonstrations, that's going to have a lasting effect. That's definitely going to traumatize those children in a way where they're going to remember this for the rest of their lives. And not only them, but also the other adults that also had to witness these things that were going on. Now, there is a picture. I don't think... Oh, that's a pregnancy center, but I'm going to show you this picture here. I mean, it is blurred out, but it is pretty graphic, just so you guys will know. If you have children, I would recommend not having them see this. But this is the picture right here. So this woman is wearing a veil. I'm assuming simulating the thorns, the thorn crown on her head, and a shroud. She is holding, apparently they ended up being ox livers in each hand, completely bare-chested, and then she has some slogans, apparently some pro-abortion slogans written on her chest and stomach. And apparently she simulated an abortion in front of this congregation. Now, I understand this is old news, and it was an older, this is something that, they talked about here recently, but, this is something that happened, in 2013. And honestly, I hesitate to go a lot further in this, but let me go ahead and switch back the camera. But I'm just flabbergasted that they overturned like any criminal action against this person. I believe if something happened like this in America, I would hope that that person would be incarcerated, put in jail, and fined a certain amount of money that would be appropriate to this thing, and possibly have sexual charges against them because they are exposing themselves in a very graphic way, especially the protesting simulation. Now again, like, if she was doing this fully clothed, like at a picket outside of the church that this took place at, I mean, yeah, it's gross. Yeah, you could construe it as wrong and definitely anti-religion. But that's somebody's choice to protest that. But when it comes to you, more than likely, literally trespassing, not as a congregate, to do this performance piece, I guess is what we're gonna call it. It's one of those things that it definitely crosses a line. I really do hope that this doesn't happen in America, because and the sad thing is, the way that things are right now, it seems that these left-leaning radicalists, are a small group, but they're a very loud group, and they're very organized. And even though it's a small percentage of the population, that's why we're getting all these crazy riots. This is why we're getting all these crazy things, because people have, I mean, for lack of a better word, have lost their minds. They've lost their sense of reality. They've lost their sense of reasoning, of treating people kindly and equally. I mean, could you imagine if this was a man that exposed, his private parts and had all of this stuff? Like, that would be a whole another different thing. And all things being equal, I would assume that it shouldn't matter who it was, that they would both be incarcerated. They would both be fined appropriately for those crimes. And it should be a sex crime, in my opinion. So wearing a crown of thorns to mock Jesus Christ and a blue veil to deride the Virgin Mary, Bhutan carried pieces of ox livers to symbolize an aborted baby as she stood in front of the church altar and pretended to perform an abortion before urinating on the ground. Oh, I forgot about that part. Before urinating on the ground in front of the congregants. Written on Bhutan's body at the time was the French phrase 34 salope, however you say it, which translates into 344th slut, in reference to an open letter of 343 French women who admitted to having an abortion in 1971. The church's priest filed a legal complaint against Bhutan, who was found guilty by a French court of an unlawful sexual display. Yeah, blatant for sure. She was sentenced to more than a month in prison and ordered to pay the church 2,000 euros, I'm guessing, a punishment France's highest court upheld. An opinion rendered in October 13th, the Strasbourg-based ECHR ruled that by punishing Bhutan for her display, France violated the article of the European Convention on Human Rights that protects freedom of expression. Okay. The court notes that the applicant's conviction was based on the characterization of the offenses of sexual exhibition. The opinion said, in part, according to the government, it was not intended to sanction her critical ideas and opinions on the doctrine of the Catholic Church. Nevertheless, the court considers, as it has mentioned above, that in view of this militant nature, the action of the applicant who sought to express her political convictions in line with positions defended by the Femin movement on whose behalf she was acting must be regarded as constituting a performance falling within the scope of the article, the opinion added. So here's what I don't understand. I don't understand why she wasn't jailed for this and why it was overturned. And I don't understand why she wouldn't be fined more. No one should be exposing themselves as a sexual exhibition, especially in public. This would be a crazy thing to be seen if it happened in the USA. There's something to say how people seem to do things we feel is inappropriate and still are able to get away with it. Just like the individuals that were incarcerated during the times of the riot with the Black Lives Matter and Antifa movements, and they were released on bond because they have these left-leaning radicalists with deep pockets to get them out of jail. I get there are some places where tops for any sex is not required. However, it felt weird. It feels weird seeing topless women. So my wife and I, we went to Cancun, Mexico, and on one of our exhibitions that we got to go onto this small tiny island. It has some restaurants and stuff, but it's mostly just like a big island for people to swim and to have fun. And there was topless women there. Now, obviously, my wife pointed it out to me. I'm just like, yeah, that's pretty normal in some European areas. So, although it was awkward for us in America, I'm not going to tell somebody that they can't do that. Obviously, it was all adults. It was an island that was only allowed adults 21 and up. So, I mean, that was pretty smart. But, breastfeeding is one thing. And obviously breastfeeding doesn't bother me because that's what nature made women to produce in their breast. They were able to produce food for their children in normal cases. So to see this display and to understand what this person did during some kind of worship mass, some kind of Christmas thing, in front of a congregation, more than likely kids, that really bugs me. That really bothers me. And honestly, if this person was doing this demonstration, outside with the other picketers and the other, individuals that were protesting, the Catholic Church's, belief on abortion, yeah, go for it. Have at it. Sure. Make demonstrations, but be fully clothed. That's not okay. What are you, crazy? That's what I don't understand with some of these radicalized individuals who believe that it's okay to do things like destroy property, to set fire to businesses, to overturn, cop cars and throw Molotov cocktails through glass windows, to spray paint all over sidewalks and the side of buildings, in protest. It's one thing to hold signs and to yell things through a megaphone, but it's another thing to deface private and public property. And unfortunately, it toppled a lot of business owners during those times, and it's just really sad. So EHCR ordered France to pay Bhutan 9,800 euros for moral damages, legal costs, and expenses. That's weird. So she got money to pay for legal costs and damages? That doesn't make any sense. Grigor Pupnik, the director of the European Culture for Law and Justice, criticized the European Court's ruling, claiming in a statement in this organization's website that the ECHR is increasingly defends attacks against Christian churches on the continent while treating attacks against Islam differently. In 2018, it had already ruled that the blasphemous provocation of the feminist punk group, the Pussy Riots, in the choir of the Orthodox Cathedral in Moscow was a form of expression protected by the court, Pupnik wrote. The Pussy Riot lawyers, formerly working for George Soros Foundation, of course, George Soros, of course, I believe it. how many times has been implicated in a lot of these radical left and feminist movements. Since become judge at the ECHR, the same year the court also condemned Lithuania for sanctioning blasphemous advertisements featuring Christ and the Virgin Mary. Pupnik continued. Now, as I was kind of explaining, I am someone who will champion somebody's right to defend someone's right to freedom of speech. This is something, as a moderate conservative, I believe very strongly that freedom of speech is very, very important. As long as you're not literally and definitively, objectively like calling to violence or speaking violence towards somebody. And what do I mean by speaking violence towards somebody? Because obviously words are not violence, obviously. But saying that you're going to go out and harm somebody, saying that you're going to go out and you're going to unlife somebody, saying that you're going to tell your followers to go and hurt somebody in a certain way or unlife somebody. I think those things are not okay. I believe a reasonable, rational person would believe that those things are not okay. Anything outside of that, I don't see a big problem with it, because I believe that if something is through our right of freedom of speech is saying things that are incorrect, that somebody can refute that with better speech. Something that Joe Rogan has, said many, many times, that I firmly believe in that, even though I don't agree with him on everything. So, however, it's just like there are gun laws prohibiting certain things. It begs the question, why did this individual get a slap on the wrist? Like, why was this person initially in jail and given a fine, but then later overturned because they believe that it's protected under their freedom of speech? It doesn't make absolutely any sense, because technically she wasn't a congregate, so she technically trespassed. So it doesn't really make any sense. Like, I am so confused on this. Now, I understand European laws, French laws, very, very different than the United States. However, it begs the question, like, could this something like this occur and happen, and would that person get away with it? I hope that there are laws in place that would not allow somebody like that to get away with this. I'm all for your right to burn flags, destroy effigies of presidents, even funny cartoons posing religious deities. But these demonstrations to be protected whilst inside the damn building? Like, honestly, like, when I was reading this, like, I honestly was just like, this has to be a joke. This has to be not real. But as I read into it, like, it seems like this is like a real thing that has occurred. I am absolutely flabbergasted, to say the least. And I've had the opportunity to talk in depth about my personal beliefs on abortion, and so I'm not going to go into like every single detail that I have already outlined in an already particular in a previous podcast. But as a moderate conservative, my view on abortion is obviously I want to save as many unborn children as I possibly can. I am under the belief that when the child is conceived, when biologic lesson, when the sperm enters into the egg and fertilizes, and those cells start to divide within it, that has created life. And we could even go as far as to say that even the egg and the sperm are life, because they are made up of cells within a human body. And so what happens when you have sex and the human egg is fertilized by human sperm? It becomes a human baby. So that's something to be important for me to say. Just like if we found single-celled organisms on another planet, whether in our solar system or another, if we found a single-celled organism or many-celled organisms, we would say that is life on another planet. This is alien life. And so with that being said, within, you go a little bit deeper into sperm, into eggs, you will see they're all made up of cells. And so that's my position on that. Now, that's my belief as far as like my pro beliefs on pro-life. Now, on my personal other side of this coin of pro-choice, I believe that pro-choice starts when you're making the decision to have sex or not. I believe we should continue to teach abstinence. It doesn't have to be, religious belief in abstinence, but you can teach children to just wait until they're married. It doesn't have to be anything about God. It doesn't have to be anything about the teachings of Jesus or the Catholics or the Mormons or the Baptists or the Methodists or the Seventh-day Adventists or the Jehovah's Witnesses. We can teach kids that it's okay to wait to have sex. It's okay to wait to have children. One of the three things that's really important to, I can see his face right now, but I can't find his name at the moment. Ben Shapiro believes the three things that'll keep you out of, the poverty level in America is obviously to, when you graduate, or while you're in high school, get a job and keep it. Wait to have sex until you're married, and then once you're married, then choose to have children. So graduate high school, get a job, wait until you finish those things to have children, and more than likely you will be above the poverty level. And I strongly believe that. I think that is something that should be a part of the pro-choice movement. I believe that there's other choices that are not being taught. There are other choices that are being demonized or even completely overlooked or forgotten. I don't think it's a matter of keep the baby or get rid of the baby. I really do believe that there's, decisions in between that. And I think it all starts as, am I going to have sex with this other person? I think that's reasonable. So I think that as far as choice is concerned, that should be a choice. I believe that if you do make the choice to have sex with that other person and you produce offspring, I believe that there should be another choice involved to decide whether you're going to get married or you're going to, separate the responsibilities. You're going to still be in the life of the child, but you're not going to be attached to that person through marriage. That's another choice that needs to be made. And I think after that, if, either one or the other person don't want to have anything to do with the child, then the next logical choice would be, okay, so should we put this child in the system or should we put him or her up for adoption? I believe that should be the next choice. And then only for extreme circumstances, in my opinion, only in extreme circumstances should the choice be available for, the life of the mother. Maybe this child should not come into this world because it's, that's killing the mother. And it has to be objective. It can't be subjective. So in the life of the mother, yes. And if it's, before, was it 22 weeks when I think premature, I think they can keep, premature babies alive, I think after 22 weeks, I believe it is. So anything between, before that, great. Possibility of rape, that I think, that should be an option, for that individual. But also that person should also understand what's growing inside them properly. And I believe that person should have the opportunity to decide, whether they want to bring this child in the world or not. Because I can understand how scary it can be. I mean, not personally understand, but I can have an understanding that it could be scary for somebody who has had that situation, who has had that trauma, and then thinking about whether they want to bring that child in the world that's going to remind them every single day of that horrible, terrible thing that's happened to them. But on the other hand, you got to think of how that child didn't ask to be brought into the world, but yet, the conception happened and the child is growing within that woman and it's happening anyways. So, and then it becomes the question, okay, well, adopt or not. I think there's more choices, and it really discourages me when I hear people saying, well, it's just either keep the baby or get rid of the baby. It's like, okay, but there's other choices that without the destruction of life, there's other choices, but I digress. I am all for, freedom of speech. The only stipulations that I have against it is if it literally calls for violence, not figuratively or, hey, I'm reading between the lines. No, I mean literally and objectively, this person is calling for violence. We are going to go and hurt this person in this way. We're going to go out and unlife this person in this way, or, death to this person. I digress. I could go on and on and on, but let's move on. So poll finds majority of GOPers long for 1950s. Gee, why is that? by Jahan Jones. So this is an article. This is a MSNBC article, of course. And this is in my opinion, a very radicalized leftist who has decided to see the world through the lens of race. Let's read in. The 1950s, the good old days, before all those black agitators. Seriously, bro. And that pesky Civil Rights Act of theirs got in the way of a good white man's posterity. A true golden age. I can't believe I'm reading this bullshit. But anyways, I'm sorry, guys. But it's an interesting article to talk about. That's why I brought it up. When a man could come home from his job, kick his feet up, and watch Leave It to Beaver, or Gunsmoke, while his wife cooked him a hot meal. Sounds wicked, right? A new poll from the Republic Religion Research Institute suggests Republicans largely share this Polynesian view of old-timey America. According to the PRRI, 66% of Republicans think the country is worse now than in the 1950s. Oh, hey! There's one line in here that is true. That number is even higher among white evangelicals. Oh, of course, we gotta keep race, and we gotta talk about these darn evangelical nationalists, right? 71% of whom think America was better off. Half of the independents feel the country was better off in the 50s, according to the data, along with just 30% of Democrats. Wow, that's a pretty good. That's a pretty good chunk of Democrats. And I think it's really interesting how this person is reading into this data in a very, in my opinion, a very malicious way. So my personal position is that of the economics of the 1950s. Like, they were good at that time, the economics. One parent could earn enough money to take care of the average American family, pay for gas, goods, services. Everything was super low. Families could save for things like medical care, traveling, vacations, investments, as well as retirement, which most Americans struggled to keep up with the month-to-month bills, and most putting these things on credit lines. Yes, we are in the worst economic downturn since the 2008 housing bubble. We are in a recession, and despite what other people feel like it is different, the facts say otherwise. Gas is overpriced, food overpriced, goods and services overpriced, even double, and the economy is an 8% plus inflation month over month. Yes, we are in a worse and very dire situation now in our economic situation since the 1950s. I mean, come on, these are facts, right? What is this hate towards people with faith in God? I have no love for individuals that perpetuate their religious beliefs. Like, if you're going to believe in God and you're going to believe in your religion, go do you. Just like I believe with people, of color, of sex, whatever you're going to do, go do you. Don't force it on anybody else, but go do you. MSNBC, please remove these radical leftists off your roster. You are killing your viewer base. These are my thoughts on this. And what's really interesting is this individual has clearly looked at these numbers from a lens of everybody who is not of a different color of white. So anybody who is non-white are the victors here, and anybody who is white are, well, I think I'm missaying this. Basically, this person is saying that anybody who is white and believes that we should be in the economics of the 1950s are racist. And I think that's very disingenuous. I believe that's overreaching. I believe it's misleading. And this is just, honestly, it's a garbage article. The data suggests an overwhelmingly majority of Republicans long for a time when white conservative Americans, why is it white conservative Americans? Do you know that there are tons of black conservatives, sir? Sorry, I'm getting a little wind up here, aren't I? Let me go ahead and bring this back. Conservative Americans were engaging in widespread racist violence, and Americans in general were living significantly shorter lives, experiencing higher infant mortality rates, losing more children to death before age 5, graduating high school at a substantially lower rate, and receiving significantly less education on average compared to Americans today. Oh, and paying significantly higher taxes. So, the Republican utopia? Gee, this person is being very combative. I can tell in his words. What could it be that Republicans truly liked about the 1950s? The economics. We liked the economics of the 1950s, not the racial divide in the 1950s. The economics. Can you not separate the two? Could it be the lack of a federal law banning discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin? So again, this writer clearly only sees life through the lens of radicalized racism. I'm going to start calling it that because that's what it is. Like, there's racism and there's radicalized racism. This is the radicalized part. It seems to feel that anyone who is American or white are bad people. This is what this person seems to believe. I think everyone can agree we never want America when it was at its worst in the racial divide. I think we can all agree slavery as well as systematic racism has been a huge blight on American history. Why? Because it doesn't matter what color you are. If you're an American, it's American history. That's why I think it's super funny when we talk about Black History Month. Like, there's no White History Month. There's no Jewish History Month. Is there? I mean, there might be. I don't know. Is there a Sex History Month? You know? Is there a Mexican History Month? But yet we have to have Black History Month? Like, what's really funny about this is Black history is American history. Like, who can disagree with that? I don't know. So none of us want to relive that. We don't want to relive the 1950s racial divide. We don't want to live through the brutality of the 60s and 70s. We don't want to live through that. And I think it's a blatant lie saying that all Republicans, Christians, and white Americans want this, because we don't. Like, I hate blanket statements like this. Like, it's like, okay, well, who wants this? Who, like, all Republicans? Okay, which Republicans? Okay, you want to say it's systematic? Okay, which systems? You want to say it's organizational? Okay, which organizations are racist? Let's fight this together. Point them out, find the evidence, let's do it. But I'm sorry, but the writer is wrong and coming to their own conclusions without evidence. That's what bugs me about this stuff. Like, there's clearly all opinion pieces with zero evidence. And, you know, it's one thing for somebody to talk on a podcast. Like, I get it. But when it's something as big as MSNBC, you'd think they would at least have their links to denote the truths, quote unquote, of all of this. I believe very strongly that besides isolated incidences and individuals, American has been the freest from racism it has ever been in its history. Only radicalized individuals and organizations are continuing to perpetuate the lie that racism is alive and well and is as bad as it was in the 1950s. These are the articles that shouldn't be released, in my opinion. And I stand by that opinion. And honestly, like anything I say on this channel, I'm going to tell you right now, I reserve the right to change my mind, because it seems like opinions are always in flux, because the more that you learn about them, or the more things that you read about it, or maybe some new studies or new truths have come out about it, I might change my mind. Maybe somebody will link me something and say, hey, you said this about, I don't know, you said this about fentanyl. You said that it's, it's a growing epidemic and it's killing thousands of people. Here's a study that disagrees with you. I will read that study. And you know what? If it's convincing, I will change my position. I think it's quite funny that this writer only points out to white individuals and no one else who have this apparent racism. Seems like he needs to look in the mirror as racism is alive and well in this individual's heart. And honestly, I feel sad for him because, and I've talked about this story many times, so I'm going to try not to go too far into it because it looks like I have a couple more points I have here. I had the opportunity to install security systems in predominantly black America, in predominantly poorer neighborhoods. I had the opportunity to talk to, lower class, middle class, and even upper class black America, black and brown America in these different areas in the East and South. And my experience was completely different than what the mainstream media was portraying. And these different individuals that I mean, honestly, the most humorous people I have ever met in my entire life. I was dying laughing, crying laughing, like almost peeing my pants laughing. Like such humor is so incredible. Like the want and the need to change their culture so that more individuals would stay together longer, so that, parents of children would stay together longer, if not through the rest of their lives. They want to change that in their culture. They don't, unfortunately, Black America has one of the highest rates of fatherlessness, and it's really, really sad. And what's really interesting is these individuals who have kept with their spouse and kept with their kids and, have cultivated, great family relationships. They want that for other people, and especially within their Black American culture. And, many, many times I found that parents were disgusted by their younger children using the N-word and saying that is a word that have disparaged that people for so many generations. They do not want to use that word anymore. But unfortunately, it's still used in the younger culture. It's still used in rap and hip hop music. It's used as a term of endearment, which honestly, I think it's still keeping people down in that mindset of I can't get anywhere. And I think that has to stop. I think anybody using that word is using that word in racism and not with an endearment. That's just my opinion, of course. I could be wrong. And I'm sure you guys are going to let me know in the comments down below. I mean, if we went back to the 1950s, back to the article, that would mean Republicans would never have heard of Dr. Martin Luther King. Now, this is really interesting, you guys. Listen to this, because this is a complete blatant lie. Quote, so many of them claim to love so much. The one about not judging people on the color of their skin? Repeatedly, a 2019 Bloomberg column by Noah Smith does an effective job of, one, dispelling myths about posterity in the 1950s, and two, highlighting the racism and underpinning those myths. Smith writes, excuse me, women and minorities are less likely to have a wistful view of the 50s, and with good reason. Segregation was enshrined in law in much of the U.S., and de facto segregation was enforced even in northern cities. Of course, they don't mention that almost all cities have abolished and removed those laws, and only I think maybe a handful, maybe one or two cities or states still have some of those still in place. However, none of them are practicing it. Doesn't want to say that. We continue. Black Americans crowded into ghettos, were excluded from the economic opportunity by persuasive racism, and suffered horrendously. Even at the end of the decade, more than half of Black Americans lived below the poverty line. The patriarchal, of course, the patriarchy. It's the patriarchy. The patriarchal, largely white Republican Party wants to take the country back to a time where white men and their allies were permitted to discriminate against marginalized groups. Their affinity for the 1950s is a clear sign of this, as you'll find. 100% wrong. White people, especially even white Republicans, they don't want that. They don't want to go back to segregation. Like, and who? Please name them. Please name the instance where they spouted it on, I don't know, social media, their Facebook page, I don't know, any recorded speech, a YouTube video. Like, where's the proof of this? You could say that about what I'm saying, but I'm just, because I'm using anecdotal evidence of what I've experienced of Black America. So I get that. I understand that, but there's no proof of this. There's no links to anything. And here's where I think is really interesting. Check this out for those of you who are watching the video. So I just quickly did some Googling, Martin Luther King Jr. marches. So let's look at some of these photos. Let's look at this photo right here. Who is arm in arm with Dr. Martin Luther King there? Is that an old white man? So by this person's logic and by de facto, association with Mr. King, I guess Mr. King is, part of the white patriarchy because he's arm in arm with old white people. Look at this right in front here. White people. There's a bald man in the back. Interesting. Here's another picture. Look at that whitey there. Look at there's a white man right here. Not as many in this picture, but wow. Here's another white man. Another couple of older white men. Here's another white man. Arm in arm with these individuals protesting against racism. Isn't that interesting? Why is it these individuals continue to spout lies of how white people are all inherently racist? And why it's all about the patriarchy? Have people forgotten? Have these individuals, these radicalized leftists, have forgotten that that's how we got America? Is through these old white men who seceded from the United Kingdom to get away from the tyrannical king? Do they not recall that it was old white men who paved the way to free the slaves? Do they forget that it's been old white men, even up to this point, who have enacted laws to stop segregation systematically and pass laws to not only not discriminate, but to even give legs up for Black America? So I don't know why this is so easily forgotten, but it kind of bugs me. So again, this writer neglects to point out who is discriminating, which organizations or companies have systemic racism. Because if you find them, let us know. Who is it? Point to the truth. Point to the facts. Point to definitive evidence that somebody is a racist. And honestly, if you do, I'm sure that many, many people will be behind you, arm in arm, fighting against that racist divide. But here's the problem. Aside from just calling, in general, white people are racist, and the obvious, racial organization, the KKK, obviously, are racist. I mean, it's kind of difficult to prove. It's kind of difficult to prove, if a shooting was racial in nature. Just because one person is one color and another person is the other color, that doesn't prove it's racist in nature. And if you cannot give evidence along with the person or organization, then maybe it's time to retire the pen and paper, or in nowadays, your laptop or tablet. Maybe it's time to stop writing about this stuff. As facts do not have feelings. There are many pictures from many angles showing white men arm in arm with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Apparently, this writer has forgotten American history altogether, or has been indoctrinated by the radical lefts who have infiltrated the government, media, and our schools. Again, no one is saying that we take back everything back to the 1950s, but we would love to take back the economic stability of the 1950s. I would love the economic stability of that time. I would love to be able to make $150,000 a year putting together cars in Detroit or wherever, putting cars together at Tesla in Texas, and taking care of my family on one income, being able to go on vacations, be able to save for medical, for retirement, for, emergencies, to be able to put my money in a place where it'll make money for me, to save for the rainy day, to save for emergencies, to save for car repairs and not have to put it on credit cards. The skewed view of the radical left likes to forget that old white men seceded from the United Kingdom, just to make the point out, and out from under the tyranny of that king. It was old white men who paved the way for slavery to be abolished. And it is old white men who seem to be running our country today. Seems to me it's time to reach out to those old white men and encourage them to do the right thing, rather than demonize them further, dividing our country. And from my family to yours, good night. Today's video is sponsored by viewers like you, so thank you. If we earned your subscription today, don't forget to hit that red subscribe button, click that damn bell, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a content release. The best way to support the channel is to like this video, share it with family and friends, and don't forget to leave a comment down below. Send all of your topic ideas, articles, and video links to theperiodicreview@gmail.com. All of our links are in the description down below.